you have to be determined to say, I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to get hung up on. I'm going to go to these events and leave with no business cards. I'm going to send a bunch of emails today and have a bunch of unsubscribes, but I'm still going to come in tomorrow and I'm going to do it because the bigger picture in a sales career is where I'm trying to go.
Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Gravy Podcast. My name is Lucy Beth Adams, and today I'm filling in for Jeb Blount. I'm here with our master sales trainer here at Sales Gravy, Jessica Stokes. And today we're going to be talking to Jessica about how she got her start in sales, what she does here at Sales Gravy, and sales tips she might have for new and seasoned sales professionals. If you've never taken a course on Sales Gravy University, you can use the code FREECOURSE, that's free course with no space, at learn.salesgravy.com, and it'll give you access to one free course. Okay, so Jessica, what has made you travel down to the Sales Gravy studio today?
Oh, well, today I'm super excited because there's a few things I'm doing while I'm at the studio. The first is, of course, being your guest, which is really exciting because there's been a couple times I've been on the other side of the Sales Gravy podcast, so I'm excited to be the guest today. I'm also recording a few of our micro bites, so our on-demand video learning, and actually, today we're kickstarting a brand new course here at Sales Gravy called the Time Management Edge. So for sales professionals out there who just have 100 things going on every day, this 5-week Time Management Edge bootcamp is going to help people with strategies and best practices to get their days a little bit more in order.
Ooh, well, we're really excited about that. So let's begin with how you got your start in sales. So what made you start in sales and kind of how you've developed into being a sales trainer here at Sales Gravy?
Oh, awesome. Great question. So I got into sales by the recommendation of someone. And when I ask other people about how they got into sales, I think there's a lot of us out there who never really dreamed of, I'm going to be in sales one day. It just kind of found its way to us. So for me, it was actually a recommendation from a regular client at a restaurant I was working at. So I was going through college and I had a restaurant job on the side. And he approached me one day and said, Jessica, you're so good. Like every week he'd come in, his drink was already ready. I knew his order. And he said, I think you'd be really good at sales. And I'm like, I don't know. I never really thought about that before. So he lined me up with an interview at his organization, and the rest is pretty much history.
So did you start sales right out of college? So your only previous job before that was working in a restaurant, being a waitress?
Yeah, well, and I was actually in the military. So right out of high school, I wanted to do something a little more adventurous. I didn't want to jump right into college. So I joined the Air Force. And then it was in that interim after the Air Force that I was waiting tables, going to college. And then right away, I was in sales. My first sales job was telephone sales. So picking up the phone and making, 60, 70, 80 calls a day, maybe to get 2 people a day interested in talking to me again. So a lot of rejection, a lot of hangups, a lot of bad numbers, those gatekeepers. But I actually loved the challenge. I don't know if that's the military in me or what it was, but I was like, if there's other people on the team who are booking meetings, making sales, I know I can do it too. So I think that it was the competitive spirit in me that had me say, I don't care if I get hung up on 15 times today. I'm just going to keep doing it because someone's surely going to buy or book a meeting eventually.
Yeah, that's awesome. Lots of cold calling.
Oh, yeah.
So before you got into sales, did you have some sort of preconceived notion about who salespeople are and what they do? Was it a bad perspective of them?
Okay, I know. I'm just waiting for the feedback here from our listeners. So please forgive me. I don't want to offend any of our listeners, but before I got into sales, I probably always thought of salespeople as gimmicky. So I probably had more of a not a natural draw or love for salespeople. There were no salespeople in my family, nobody that I knew was a salesperson. So I think I thought of that typical used car dealership, you're not going to get off the lot type of person. So that was probably what I thought of salespeople before getting into sales.
Yeah. Did your family think the same thing when they found out that you were in sales?
I don't think so. I never asked. So here's something interesting is when I was in my early 20s, first getting into sales, I had friends who were not in sales. And so they were getting into whatever, like marketing or, maybe paralegal or something. And I remember if I would be at a party meeting strangers and they're like, oh, what do you do? I was like, oh, I work like customer service. Like I almost didn't want to say out loud that I was a salesperson at first because I was like, are people going to be like, oh, you're a sale? Are you going to try to sell me now? Like, I think at first was even nervous to say I was in sales. So I kind of sugarcoated it into customer service, account management. Like, I wasn't like, I'm cold calling people all day long and trying to sell them copy paper over the phone. Like, I didn't want to go that far.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So since you have been working in sales pretty much your whole working career, what has been your biggest challenge while working in sales?
Great question. I think it depends on your phase of your sales career. So I think early on, probably one of my biggest challenges was finding a way to keep doing the dials every day, every week without getting discouraged, without getting to the point of feeling like maybe sales isn't for me. I haven't closed a deal this week. My sales are too far behind. So I think in the earlier part of my career, it was that self-talk and finding a way to encourage myself to say, like, look, every day is not going to be a win in sales. And you still have to show up the next day, the next week, the next month, and just give it 110%. And, like Jeb says all the time, the more you prospect, the luckier you get. And the more you show up, the more you put in the work, then all of a sudden that luck comes your way. And I think later in my sales career, probably one of the bigger challenges was really balancing, like finding time to still run a book of business while leading a sales team or trying to keep the sales team excited and motivated when they were struggling to come in and make those dials every day.
So you talked about self-talk in your early sales career. Was there anything else that you did to motivate yourself to go back and like handle rejection over and over and over again besides just self-talk, or was that kind of what kept you going?
Yeah. So for myself, one of the things that I always have done throughout my sales career is I actually find a way to reward myself with my commission. So outside of whatever leadership management was doing for compensation, bonuses, trips, whatever it is that we can all win or earn in a sales career, I always tried to find something that I was working for personally. So when I was new to my sales career, one of my goals was to go out to Las Vegas. Like as an early 20-something, I'm like, I want to go to Vegas. I want to have a great time. I'd never been.
Yeah.
So there was one point early in my career that I said, if I, hit this sales bonus, if I hit this number, then I'm going to take that trip to Vegas that I want. And of course, I earned that trip to Vegas for myself.
Yeah.
But I always found ways to say, if I'm hitting my quota, if I'm hitting my bonus, if I'm overdriving it, what is that personal reward that I can associate with it? And even, 20 years later, I'm still doing that. So I'm still thinking, if I hit this number, if I hit this bonus, then, that college fund is finally fully funded for my kids or whatever that goal might be with that. And of course, it helps when you're working with an organization that has leaderships that love, contests or bonuses, incentives to keep you focused as well, because most salespeople like that competitive spirit. So
yeah, I think sales is a very competitive game.
Yeah.
So people who are competitive want to be able to win something and have that show for them. So while you've been working in sales, have you noticed like a personality trait that has been beneficial to you and like helped you out that you've just had before, working in sales and everything?
Yeah, I think I would say that I'm like I have like an adventurous spirit. Like if there's like a risk, if there's a challenge, like those are things that get me excited. And so I think in sales to say, look, if there is a challenge, whether it's to land like a really large opportunity, whether it is to outsell somebody else in the organization, whether it's to outdial someone, I think that because I really do enjoy a challenge, that has helped me in sales.
At my house, we call it being an adrenaline junkie.
I love that.
You love just like the adrenaline of things that just excite you.
Yeah.
So I can totally see how that would like play into helping you in your career. So on the contrary, has there been something like a personality trait that has not helped you while being in your sales career?
I think if I had to think of something that, was not a benefit or something that maybe I had to work harder at over my career, It would probably be something along the lines of not wanting to be too pushy sometimes. So I think when you're thinking of existing customers or those prospects who, the timing is not right, or, we're hearing the things like we have to speak with another person, a spouse, a business partner, a board. I think that especially when I was earlier in my sales career, I never wanted to upset somebody because it's like you've worked so hard to get that first meeting, to get the proposal out, to take whatever steps. And it's like you don't want to tick somebody off. You don't want to make them hang up on you or like start ghosting you. So I think that was a weakness for a very long time, is saying, I don't want to force anything. So I'd rather just sit back and wait.
Right. And in sales, you can't just wait around for it. So it is tough. I'm the same way, though. I can't be like forceful and pushy. And so that would be tough for me for sure. So speaking of that, so what have you found in your sales career and like looking at other people that you've trained and stuff? Like, what do you think the most important trait is for them or for you, just like kind of in general, that you've seen like across the board that has just like improved people's sales game tremendously, that every single one of these people has that personality trait?
I do think it is like that competitiveness or that determination, because I think in sales, you have to want it more than your manager, more than your commission plan. Like you have to have something in you that says, I don't care how hard it is. Like I'm committed to this position, and I'm committed to it for an amount of time too. So I meet a lot of salespeople who think, oh, well, like 3 weeks in, I should be closing deals. And of course, depending on your sales cycle, that could certainly be the case. But I want you to like think of it takes 3, 6, 9 months maybe to really get your mojo going and to get your momentum going and to get that confidence and things like that. So I think that you have to be determined to say, I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to get hung up on. I'm going to go to these events and leave with no business cards. I'm going to send a bunch of emails today and have a bunch of unsubscribes, but I'm still going to come in tomorrow and I'm going to do it because the bigger picture in a sales career is where I'm trying to go. A lot of people love getting into sales because there's so many perks, right? Like you have maybe job flexibility. Of course, earnings potential is usually very high in a lot of industries for salespeople. So you have to have your vision where you're going to go when you succeed and get through that muck of the starting part of a new sales role.
Yeah. So like the confidence, the drive, the grit to just be able to do it. And, not everyone has that. So salespeople are a different breed for sure. But I know that Jeb says, I think it's like 4 no's leads to 1 yes. So I feel like as a salesperson, you're probably counting each no. And you're like, okay, the next one is probably going to be a yes. So you just like work your way to it. So how do you like maintain relationships with customers or close deals that you have had in the past?
So one of the things I love to do to maintain relationships with my customers is, first of all, for anyone who might know me, listen to the podcast or come into Sales Gravy courses, I am such a fan of old school, traditional, handwritten notes, cards, a copy of an article or a flyer where you've written on a Post-it note saying, hi, Lucy Beth, I read this article. I thought you might want to share it with your sales team. I love stuff that goes in the traditional mail because nobody is using it anymore. The only mail we get is junk or, credit card applications or things that we just throw out. So I'm a huge fan of maintaining touch points with customers or former customers through that style. But other than that, you want to be connected to everyone on LinkedIn. Customers, former customers, wannabe customers, because LinkedIn is one of the easiest ways to maintain familiarity and to have people know what's going on in your world. So even that customer who perhaps did business with you 3, 4, 5 years ago, well, when you're connected on LinkedIn and they see some cool things happening at Sales Gravy, like new content or whatever, that could be a great conversation starter. And another thing that I really encourage people to do is consider, what is your quarterly nurturing campaign look like? So when I think about maintaining customer relationships or former customer relationships, every quarter there should be some kind of outbound touch point made. It doesn't always have to be a meeting or a phone call. Sometimes it might be that soft email of an article that just got posted. You just want to share with them. So you're not always like looking for the meeting. Sometimes you're just giving information, you're giving tips, you're giving updates. But I definitely recommend at least quarterly on those type of customer and former customer contacts.
Okay, I love the snail mail idea. That's great because a lot of people, especially in my age group, do not use it. Some people don't even know how to address a letter, which is wild to me, but it is crazy. And I think it's a really important skill to keep and have and to continue to use. So that's a great idea. I really like that.
Well, and you stand out then, Lucy Beth.
Yeah.
Because who else is sending snail mail? Nobody.
Nobody.
So all of a sudden, even if you're the Gen Xer, the Gen Z, the Gen Y, it doesn't matter what generation you are. Nobody's sending snail mail right now.
The only package or the only mail I get is my Amazon packages that I order weekly of random things I see. And it's really exciting, but I think I'd be more excited to get a nice letter in the mail from someone saying that they appreciate my time. So that would be great. So I guess that kind of plays into you being a sales trainer. So what is your favorite part of being a sales trainer, especially here at Sales Gravy?
So absolutely. My favorite part is when somebody tells me that they had an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that new sales rep to their organization and they send me an email and say, Jessica, that tip you gave in the class the other day, I applied it. It totally connected with me. It led me to landing the meeting I've been trying to get. It could be the seasoned sales professional that actually just last week I was doing an on-site event for one of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the gentlemen in the room, he came up to me afterwards and he's like, I have been in this industry for 30 years and I actually learned something today. And so that's what I really, really enjoy is that regardless if you're brand new or if you're a very experienced salesperson, when I can make that connection with someone and it could change their way that they're selling, get them more commission, give them another meeting, give them more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly why I love doing what I do.
Do you tend to have a harder time with the seasoned sales professionals and getting them to sit there and actually listen to what you're saying and try to take it in? Because I know Jeb talks a lot about you can learn something new in every single aspect of your life. There's always stuff to learn. No matter if you've read a book before, if you read it again, you're probably going to learn something new again. So, do you have a hard time with seasoned sales professionals who think that they might already know everything about it and that them having to sit through a training is just kind of boring and another day of just nothing? So, how do you handle that?
So, you know what, Lucy Beth? Actually, these type of learners come in all ages.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you, it's just as difficult to deal with or, engage with that learner in the classroom who is even the young learner who thinks, I already know everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the rock star of the year. I'm already hitting sales quota, and they have their arms crossed in the back of the room or they don't want to come on camera on virtual. So those type of learners actually come in every age. Mm-hmm. And I think when I started my training career, that probably intimidated me or made me a little nervous around that more experienced salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
that I, maybe didn't have the experience they had. I wasn't, 30 plus years in. So I think at first I probably was a little intimidated by that, but certainly not anymore. And I think that what's helped with that is all of the affirmation that we get here at Sales Gravy from, again, the 30-year salesperson, the, number one rep in the company who is still going through training and open to it and applying tools that shares positive feedback with the class. And when it comes to those learners who do come across disengaged, the biggest way to make that connection with them is to actually either call, engage with them in the classroom. Sometimes I will call on those people directly. In other cases, depending on how standoff they are, that might be a person that I specifically target during a break. So if it's an in-person training, I'll go out of my way to stand next to them in the lunch line or to find them while they're having coffee and just break the ice, because sometimes it's just that personality style. They are just a defensive, maybe more of an A-type personality. And once that defense comes down, all of a sudden they might return to the classroom a little bit more open. Oh, she's not really that bad.
Yeah. I might be able to learn something. Yeah. Yeah. I think the A-type personality, it really sums it up though, because I do think that a lot of people with that personality just kind of close themselves off and then put a shell around themselves and I don't need this. I know what I'm doing. So I think that that's really great that you sit there and make them uncomfortable and make them open up, which is really great. Okay. What are your top strategies for handling objections from potential customers?
Well, so as you guys all know, here at Sales Gravy, we are like big fans of the, ledge, disrupt, and ask. So I think when it comes to handling objections for customers, a couple tips I would give our listeners right now. Number one is you definitely want to have them written out and ready. So a lot of us think, even those experienced salesperson people listening, a lot of us think, I know how to overturn this, I'm not interested, or I'm too busy, or just send me an email objection. And it's all stored up in our brain. And the challenge with that is when we're in that moment of discomfort and this prospect or this customer is telling me, I don't know if I want to work with you. We already work with one of your competitors. Just send me an email. Well, those nerves kick in. And a lot of you guys have heard Jeb talk about fight or flight, and that amygdala gets stimulated. And all of a sudden, all that strong thinking part of my brain kind of just disappears. And I'm left going, blah, okay, I hang up, right? So I think one of the most powerful tools you can have with objection handling is actually thinking through the top 3 objections you expect to get and have it written out. I oftentimes tell people that this is like some of my kids, when they go into like the final exam, some teachers are really cool and they'll let like kids bring in an index card or a study guide.
Those are
like
so nice.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, awesome. They're letting us bring a study guide in. But it's optional, right? Like there's some kids, like my son, who go into that final where there's a study guide welcome, and he still doesn't take the time to do it, right? And then he wonders when he tries to wing it why he didn't get, an A or an A plus and, whatever. Meanwhile, there's other students in the class who took the time to do the study guide. They were prepared, and they may or may not have needed it during the test, but it's there in case they get panicked with that one question that the teacher was trying to stump them on, and then they have it. So I really want you to think of going into objection handling as an open book test. Give yourself every advantage, especially to anybody doing cold calling on the phone. Your customer or prospect doesn't see that you have that index card right there to help you. So have it written, have it practiced, and always end with your ask. So a lot of times people start saying, oh, well, sorry, to hear that you're not interested right now, blah, 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 blah. And they kind of talk without asking a question. And once you ask that question, you're throwing that pressure of engagement to the prospect.
So I like how you said that you have it written down so you don't ramble. You can look at it, you can read it, you can recite it. And I think a lot of people who don't have like a script in front of them and they're on a cold call, they're getting those objections, they just freak and like they go into that fight mode or the flight mode where they just hang up. But sometimes people fight and they're like, da-da-da-da-da, like trying, like they're stuttering, trying to get what they want to say out before that person will hang up on them. But like they don't have what they want to say. So I think that having a script in front of you is really great. What 3 objections do you think you face the most that you have to prepare for when you're talking to potential clients?
Probably not interested, right? Who's interested in receiving a cold call?
Right.
And so anyone who answers an unknown number, they were not interested in talking to a salesperson. And we get that objection or that brush off almost immediately. Like if I asked you to say, well, do you even remember my name or my company? Most of them can't even tell you that because they're just so ready to get you off the phone. So I'd say not interested, too busy, and just send an email. Like, I don't even want to talk to you. Like, just shoot me an email. I'm trying to brush you off that way. So in what I experience, those tend to be the top 3. And to your point, Lucy Beth, like if you don't have it written out, then we tend to either hang up or we ramble. We start maybe all of a sudden trying to pitch, trying to sell. And then that prospect is just waiting to slap us with that second objection. And I always encourage salespeople to try to go for 2, because the first objection or brush off you get is usually just that knee jerk, that instant reaction that, whoops, I answered a sales call today. I don't want to talk to you. I'm too busy. Just email me. We have a vendor already for that. So they're just looking for anything to say to end the phone call. So when you have your notes and you can overturn that one, the second objection in many cases tends to be the closer to the truth objection. So if you told me you were too busy today and I try to overturn that and I say, hey, no worries, Lucy Beth. As a matter of fact, I figured you would be too busy. The only reason I'm reaching out was to schedule some time that's going to be better on your calendar. What does Friday morning at 9:30 look like for you? Well, now you're kind of forced to engage with me.
Right.
And so now your next objection might be, well, Jessica, we already have another sales training company that we are under contract with. So it's like I want to find that second objection because it tends to be what I really want to tackle and deal with, not you trying to tell me you're too busy today. And meanwhile, you're just looking at the clock. You have 30 minutes left of work. You're scrolling through Instagram. Like you have plenty of time to talk to me. You just don't want to.
Right. So say you get past all of those objections and you book a meeting and you're kind of like on the way to that closing process. How would you handle it by like if you got rejected just kind of towards the very end? Like how does that affect you? How does it affect your sales process? Maybe like your hopes and dreams for that client? Like what do you do after that to like continue on and keep going?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So, of course, in sales, we're all going to lose from time to time. I mean, that's, it's just a fact. We're going to have those deals that we end up losing. So I think a couple of things you want to think about, like, especially for anybody listening today that may have just lost a deal today or just last week, that deal in your pipeline that was going to save your quarter or your week or your month just told you that they went with the other vendor. I think a few things. First of all, going back to what we were talking about earlier, a lot of where you get your drive and where you get your own positivity is truly from you. So I would encourage people to find something that makes you happy. Maybe that is texting one of your best friends. Maybe it's calling a family member to say, man, I am having such a crappy day. Like I lost that deal. Maybe it's a coworker or a colleague that just can help lift you up. But you have to be aware of what helps you get into a better zone. So I want everybody to think about those things and maybe even have like a list of top 3 things that put you in a better mood. I had a sales rep once who had actually a YouTube like playlist of a whole bunch of comedy acts that he liked to watch. And every time he had a really bad, like maybe a hang up or he lost a deal, he just went to his YouTube playlist and he's like, I just need to laugh for a little bit because as soon as I can find that positivity back, I'm going to do a better job on the phone. And of course, you guys probably don't want to hear this, but the best thing you can do after you lost a deal is, of course, start prospecting again, is to shake off the loss and turn to the phones, turn to your email, turn to your former customers, go out and try to find that business to try to, replace it. Also, I kind of believe that even people who tell you no and stay with the other vendor or, whatever, it's not a no forever.
Right.
So if you have that connection on LinkedIn, they're going to see what's going on in your world. Or even if you don't have a LinkedIn connection, there's no reason why you can't reach back out to that account in 6, 9, or 12 months to say, I want to see if we can book a meeting. It's been a while since we spoke last. There's some new things going on here at Sales Gravy. Want to find out how things are going with your team. And there have been times where I have lost an opportunity, but then it ended up being a new customer down the road. And that might be down the road 9 months, a year, or 2 years down the road. So don't just totally say, there's no chance I'm ever going to win this business again.
Do you think it's a good idea to go in and ask them like why you did lose and why you didn't close their deal with them and like figure out what you did wrong? Not saying that you did something wrong, but like what happened to have that deal fall through?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, so earlier in our conversation, I mentioned that when I was new to sales, one of my weaknesses or areas of opportunity was, I felt I could be too pushy. So if somebody just wanted me to send a proposal or if they said, hey, we'll get back to you. So one of the things when it comes to really understanding why you lose deals is you're going to understand that better when you always have a next step scheduled. So here at Sales Gravy, we refer to this as gaining your micro commitment, gaining those next steps along the sales process journey. Because if you and I have developed an emotional connection, and if we're on this journey together, then when I get to that live telephone call or that live Zoom or Teams meeting where you're kind of breaking up with me.
That's what it feels like.
Then there's more of an opportunity for us to engage.
Yeah.
And for me to say, hey, not a problem. Do you mind if I ask, what were the things that, Sales Gravy didn't have or whatever? But now we're engaging in a conversation. So whenever you're going to lose a deal, you never want it to come through email or ghosting. And one of the best ways to avoid that is having that next scheduled call. Because what I find is that when people agree to that micro commitment, to having that time and date on the calendar together, they tend to show up. And then we're having a conversation around why we're not moving forward together versus me trying to reply to an email and saying, hey, Lucy Beth, can you tell me why you went with the other vendor? And then maybe you just ghost me anyway.
Right.
So guys, micro commitments are like so important and so powerful. And if there's anybody listening right now who's looking at your current pipeline, if you do not have a calendar call with every deal in your pipeline, you are missing an opportunity. You're increasing your likelihood of getting ghosted. And I would encourage you to get everyone in your pipeline or your calendar like before the end of the business day today. Like that's how important it is. As a matter of fact, on this subject, one of my clients, we were running a 2-week micro commitment challenge the last 2 weeks of last month. And I had every person on the sales team do this exercise. They went through their whole pipeline and they had to go ask for a next step and they had to track their ratios. And it was a small sales team, only 4 people on the team. But as a group, they averaged 78% yes to getting the next step. Guys, it happens. Usually salespeople are too afraid to ask for that next step because they were junior Jessica. Like when I was in that fearful, I don't want to hurt your feelings by asking you for another meeting. So oftentimes salespeople are avoiding that ask because we're trying to be too nice.
Okay. So talking about junior Jessicas, what would you have given your junior Jessica? Like what piece of advice would you have given her, like starting off in sales?
Let's see here. I think I would have given junior Jessica just like believe in yourself. Like don't be intimidated by somebody's title. I think junior Jessica also had a lot of intimidation if you're calling on somebody and they have that title of C something, CEO, COO, VP of sales. And I think as a young salesperson, I was probably too fearful to even try an account that looked like it had a brand name or I was calling a owner of a business or something. So I think it would be like believe in yourself, and all the people we talk to are really cool. Like they're human beings too. So that fear of making that phone call to that CEO or to that big brand name that you're thinking there's no way I'm ever going to land this deal. I want to just tell Jessica Jr., like just go for it. Like don't be intimidated. Like shake that fear off because the person you're reaching out to is truly a human being. And if you believe in what you're selling and how you're helping people, then there's a good chance they're going to have a conversation with you and they're going to want to learn about how you're going to be able to help their business.
I love that. That's awesome. Okay. So we will end it off with this. This is one of my favorite questions. I've really enjoyed asking people this who do work in sales. But what is the one thing that you have learned in sales that you have implemented into your just everyday life? Like you use it all the time, but you never used it before really starting in sales?
I love this question, and immediately I have an answer for this.
Okay.
For me, it is time blocking. And when we think about time blocking, this is truly no multitasking. When you are sitting there calling through a list of 10 or 15 calls to make, you make those calls without checking email, without being on your internal chat, without getting up to refresh your coffee. Like you are power working in that 10 to 15 minutes. And as a busy mom and professional, literally I have to time block almost everything in my life. If it's not in a time block on my calendar, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So even, something for a child of mine, help them with, homework or something, that has to be a time block where I'm just focused on that activity for 10 to 15 minutes, not spot checking email, not trying to watch, TV in the background. I have to be focused on that. So time blocking for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great one that I should probably be doing as well. My ADHD lets my mind just run wild with everything. So I definitely need to be doing that. But I just want to thank you so much for coming back onto the Sales Gravy podcast on the other side of things. I have really enjoyed our chat today.
Me too.
And if you haven't already, go find Jessica on LinkedIn and be on the lookout for her new courses on Sales Gravy University. If you've never taken a course on Sales Gravy University, you can use the code FREECOURSE, that's free course with no space, at learn.salesgravy.com. And it'll give you access to one free course to take, and you could go take Jessica's if you want. Be on the lookout for them. Thank you for joining me on the Sales Gravy podcast today. It's been super fun to learn about you, your sales career, and just the knowledge you hold about sales, and I've really enjoyed all of it.
Thanks.
See y'all next time on the Sales Gravy podcast. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to click like and subscribe so you never miss a single video. And if you want more sales training content, go to learn.salesgravy.com.